Man, let me tell you something real quick, and I need you to hear me on this, because this right here ain't no small thing. See, most people wake up every day acting like this life is permanent, like they gonna be here forever, like they got unlimited tomorrows stored up in some warehouse somewhere. But Islam, man, Islam hits you with a reality check so strong it'll make you sit up straight and look around like, hold up, you mean to tell me this whole thing, everything I'm stressing over, this is just the test. And the more I studied it, the more I started realizing this ain't the finish line, this the trial, this the exam room, this the part where you get tested before the results come out. And see, I grew up thinking life was supposed to make sense as it went along. But the older I got, the more it felt like the questions kept getting harder and the instructions kept getting shorter. And then I started reading what Islam teaches, and man, it hit me. Life ain't messed up. Life ain't broken. It ain't unfair. The problem is we keep treating the test like it's the celebration. You ever seen a student try to party during the exam? They fail every time. And that's how a lot of folks living out here trying to turn the test room into a party hall, wondering why they walking out with an F. In Islam, they say this whole world, the fame, the beauty, the heartbreak, the money, the sickness, the laughter, the success, every single part of it is there to see what you're gonna do. Not what you say, not what you pretend, not what you post, what you do when God puts life in your hands and says, show me who you really are. And let me tell you, that changed me, because I used to think a test was only something bad. Like you only get tested when something goes wrong. You lose the job, somebody hurt you. You get sick, the bills stack up. But Islam flipped that whole thing. They said the good stuff is a test too. You get money, that's a test. You get popularity, that's a test. You get power, test. You get beauty, health, attention, opportunity, success. That ain't God rewarding you. That's God checking who you become when he hands you something other people prayed for. And I said, man, wait a minute. You mean when life is finally going good? That ain't the blessing. That's the exam paper. Because now the question is, do you stay grateful, humble, generous, obedient, patient, or you start walking around like you a little god of your own world? And I'm gonna be real with you. When I first heard that, I felt exposed. Because I used to think my struggles were the biggest test of my character. But sometimes success showed the truth louder than failure ever could. And you know what the craziest part is? In Islam, they don't say this life is just a test. They say it's the shortest part of your existence. Like imagine taking a test that lasts 1 hour. And the result of that test decides what happens to you for the next infinite years. That's life. That's what they're saying. And all of a sudden you look around and go, man, why am I stressing so hard about things that ain't even permanent? You don't take a hotel room and start remodeling the walls. You don't paint the seats on a plane you're only sitting on for 14 hours. You don't buy new curtains for a hospital room you're leaving in 2 days. You only do that kind of stuff when you think you're staying. And Islam is telling you you ain't staying. Man, let me tell you what really hit me when I kept digging into this. It wasn't just that life is a test. It's how the test is designed. Because see, when we hear the word test, we think multiple choice, clear answers, number 2 pencil, quiet room, clock ticking on the wall. But life don't come like that. Life's test don't tell you when it started, don't tell you what chapter it's from, don't tell you how long you got left. And the crazy part is, every single person in the room got a different version of the paper. Some folks get the wealth test, some get the poverty test, some get the health test, some get the chronic illness test, some get the heartbreak test, some get the temptation test, some get the patience test, some get the power test. And the one thing Islam keeps saying is don't you dare get caught looking at somebody else's paper, because that's what we do in life, right? We think, why they got it so easy? Why he got more than me? Why her life looked perfect? And God is up there like a teacher saying, your question paper ain't the same as theirs. Focus on yours. You ain't getting graded on their answers. And man, you don't even realize how deep that is until you think about how much time we waste scrolling, comparing, complaining, counting somebody else's blessings like they took it from us. That jealousy, that insecurity, that envy, it don't even come from what we don't have. It comes from forgetting that this life is a test that don't look the same for everybody. And let me tell you something else. One thing Islam does that I think is genius, it don't just say life is a test, it tells you what the test is measuring. Like imagine taking a school exam and the teacher says ahead of time, oh, by the way, I'm testing your patience, your gratitude, your self-control, your honesty, your loyalty, your humility, your ability to forgive, your character under pressure, and how you treat people who can't do nothing for you. You'd be like, hold up, so that's what all this mess was about? And that's exactly what Islam is saying. You're not getting judged on how much money you made. You're getting judged on how you made it, how you used it. And if you forgot who gave it to you, you're not getting judged on whether you got famous. You're getting judged on whether fame made you arrogant or grateful. You're not getting judged on whether life broke your heart. You're getting judged on whether you broke other people's hearts just because yours was hurting. You're getting judged on the unseen, the intentions, the choices, the sacrifices, the things nobody saw, but God saw them clearer than a security camera. And I know what somebody's thinking. Well, Steve, if life is a test, why it gotta hurt so bad sometimes? Why do good people suffer? Why do some folks die young? Why does God let things happen we don't understand? And I'm gonna tell you what Islam says. Sometimes the pain is the test and sometimes the pain is the surgery. No one likes surgery, but sometimes you need it so you don't die from what's inside you. Sometimes God removes people, money, comfort, status, opportunities, not to punish you, but to wake you up before the final report card hits. And I don't know who needs to hear this, but when everything falls apart, it don't always mean you fail. Sometimes that's the moment the test is being graded. You ever take an exam and walk out the room thinking, man, I failed, and then weeks later you get the results back and you're like, wait, I passed? Because the test didn't judge how you felt, it judged what you did. Same thing in life. You might be crying, broken, confused, thinking you ain't strong. But every time you chose patience instead of anger, faith instead of doubt, kindness instead of revenge, gratitude instead of bitterness, you was passing questions you didn't even realize were being marked. And here's the part that shook me. Islam says the test is tailored, meaning every single thing in your life is custom picked for you. Your personality, your strengths, your weaknesses, your circumstances, your family, your location, your era. All of it is part of the exact test paper God knows is right for your soul. So when people say, I can't handle this, Islam responds, if it reached you, you can. The pain might be heavy, the moment might be dark, but the strength was written with the struggle. And if you didn't have the strength, that test would have never even been assigned to you. That right there, that changes how a person breathes. Because suddenly life ain't random. Suddenly it ain't pointless. Suddenly it ain't just chaos and luck and accidents. Suddenly everything, even the worst moments, can have meaning. But let me really break this down the way it hit me. Because this part right here, this is where it gets deep, deeper than most people ever think about. See, when Islam says this life is a test, they don't just mean the big obvious things like when you lose a family member or when you get betrayed or when you get blessed with success. They mean every moment is part of the test. The way you talk to a waiter, test. The way you drive when somebody cuts you off and you feel that anger boiling up, test. The way you act when nobody's watching and you could get away with something, test. You walk past somebody who needs help, test. You see someone being wronged and you stay quiet, test. You get complimented and your ego jumps up and starts building a throne inside your chest, test. The way you treat people who can't benefit you, who can't raise your status, who can't offer you anything, that's the real test. Because anybody can be good to somebody who's useful. But good character, pure heart, that shows up when there ain't nothing in it for you. And Islam is saying, God ain't just watching the big dramatic chapters of your life like a movie. He's grading the quiet sentences. The moment you forgot were even being recorded. And let me tell you something that shook me like a slap to the soul. The test don't end when you get something. The test usually begins then. You get married, test starts. You get divorced, test starts. You get rich, test starts. You go broke, test starts. You make it to the top of your field, test. You get ignored your whole life, test. The whole world likes you, test. Nobody likes you, test. Everything in life is like a coin, one side pleasure, one side responsibility. And most people want to hold the coin so they only see the good side and they try to ignore the side that asks, now what are you going to do with it? That's where character is decided. That's where faith is revealed. Not when life is easy, not when you're praised, not when everything feels good, but when God says, here, this is yours for now, show me who you become. And I'll be real with you, the part that humbled me the most is this. In Islam, they say you don't control the test questions, but you control the answers. Meaning you ain't responsible for what life brings. You're responsible for how you respond. You might not control the storm, but you control whether you curse God or trust him. You might not control who hurts you, but you control whether you turn that pain into cruelty or wisdom. You might not control when you fall, but you control whether you get back up. That right there, that's freedom. Because most of us walk around mad at life like we expected paradise to show up on a planet built out of struggle. And Islam is saying you are not in paradise, you are being prepared for it. The same way a soldier trains before the mission, the same way a student studies before the graduation, the same way a seed sits in the dirt before it becomes something beautiful. That is this life. And here's the part that will make a person stop dead in their tracks. According to Islam, the test is open book. You got the answers already. You got the guide, you got the instructions, you got the list of character traits you're supposed to be building. Patience, gratitude, mercy, self-control, honesty, humility, courage, faith. But most people don't want to read the guide. They just want to complain the test too hard. And I'm going to tell you something, man. Life don't get easier. You get stronger. You don't pray for lighter burdens. You pray for broader shoulders. And when God gives you a bigger test, it ain't always a punishment. Sometimes it's a promotion. Some people get tested because they did something wrong. But some people get tested because they did something right. And God is about to take them to a higher level. But the new level requires a new version of them. You can't demand growth and then complain when God hands you the tools instead of the finished product. Let me put it this way. In Islam, they say every soul will taste death. And after that, the results of the test come out. Now, I don't know about you, but that made me sit down real quiet. Because we act like the goal is to live here forever. But death is the graduation ceremony. That's when the grades show up. That's when every hidden action becomes public. Every nobody saw me moment becomes crystal clear. And that's when you either walk into eternal peace or eternal regret. And I don't say that to scare anybody. I say that because life is too short to live it blind. The only people who fail the test are the ones who didn't even know they were taking it. And now let me get to the part nobody wants to think about, but everybody needs to hear. Because if this whole life is a test, like Islam says, then death ain't the ending. Death is the moment the teacher says, time's up, put your pencils down. And man, when I first understood that, I said to myself, hold on, you mean people out here acting like they ain't ever gonna leave? We build houses like we gonna live in them for eternity. We chase approval like it's gonna matter when the dirt hits the grave. We get so caught up in what people think, what people said, how people see us. And the whole time, the only one whose opinion gonna matter in the end is the one who gave us the test to begin with. And Islam don't sugarcoat it. It says plain and clear, every soul will stand alone. No entourage, no fans, no followers, no trophies, no bank account, no Instagram, no excuses, no lawyer, no PR team. Just you, your deeds, and the God who saw every breath you ever took. And let me tell you something, if that don't humble you, you ain't listening. See, we get angry when life is hard because we think comfort means success. But Islam flips that whole assumption. Islam says sometimes struggle is mercy. Sometimes pain is purification. Sometimes God don't give you what you want because he's saving you from something you can't see yet. Sometimes the things you call loss are the things that kept you from failing the test completely. And sometimes the things you call winning were actually distractions with pretty rapid. I can't tell you how many people I've met who had everything, the money, the glory, the recognition, but inside they were spiritually bankrupt, morally empty, alone in a crowded world. And meanwhile, I'd have met people with almost nothing. People who struggled every day, but they had peace that money couldn't buy, character that fame couldn't give, and closeness to God that success couldn't replace. And when Islam says this world is just a test, that's why, because things ain't what they look like. You can have the world in your hands and fail, or have almost nothing and pass with flying colors. And let's really be honest. Life is confusing only when you think it was supposed to be permanent. But once you understand you're a traveler, everything makes sense. Travelers don't panic when the hotel pillows ain't soft enough. Travelers don't fall to the floor crying when the restaurant got their order wrong. Travelers don't start building a mansion in the middle of the airport. Why? Because they know they're moving on. They don't confuse temporary stops with final destinations. And that's what Islam is telling you. Don't build your identity on things that won't follow you into the grave. Don't lose your soul trying to impress people who ain't even gonna be there when you take your last breath. Don't spend all your time decorating the exam room instead of actually taking the test. And I know somebody listening right now thinking, but Steve, what if I already messed up? What if I failed half the test already? And let me tell you something Islam teaches that I find so powerful. The test ain't over till your last breath. You can rewrite your answers. You can erase the wrong ones. You can repent, rebuild, restart, redesign your whole character. You can live 50 years wrong and 5 minutes sincere, and God could flip your whole book around. Because it ain't about perfection, it's about direction. It ain't about never falling, it's about getting up and saying, God, I'm trying again. And sometimes the people with the most mistakes end up being the ones with the strongest hearts, because they knew what it felt like to be broken, and they never want to go back there again. And let me tell you what really shook me. Islam says the biggest tragedy in life ain't losing wealth or losing friends or losing status. It's passing every test in the world except the one that actually mattered. You got the degree, but not the humility. You got the fame, but not the peace. You got the followers, but not the forgiveness. You got the house, but not the heart. You got every earthly reward except the one that lasts beyond earth. And that's why Islam keeps saying, don't fail the test by chasing the decorations. Because when it's all said and done and your name becomes a memory and your clothes get donated and your phone stops ringing and people move on with their lives, the only thing that wakes up with you in the next world is the soul you built in this one. Not your job, not your image, not your achievements, just your heart, your deeds, your truth. And that's when I finally understood why Islam keeps repeating it. This world is just a test, not a curse, not a playground, not a vacation, not an accident. A test, a temporary bridge you cross, not the place you live forever. And the ones who pass ain't the ones who never cried. They're the ones who never let go of God while they cried.